How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's LUMIX Live. We've got kind of more of just a kind of continuation of the stream from last week to go over for this particular stream. There were a lot of things that kind of like, as I looked back at what we covered, some of the questions that came in, and then some of the questions that came in after the stream, it actually made a lot of sense to kind of like dig a little bit deeper into some of the topics that we talked about. So yeah, we're going to continue the conversation about, really working on that concept of how to get the most out of your camera so you can spend less time in post for those times when you don't have to be spending time in post. As I said last week, there are many situations where the post side of work is incredibly important. So between like color grading, if you're working a vlog, if you're a raw photo shooter, all those things, and they're great, they're awesome. We're going to have a conversation about those in the future as well. But knowing that we've put a lot of tools into the cameras to kind of help make it so you don't have to spend as much time all of the time in post, this is just a continuation of that conversation. So if this is new, if these live streams are new to you, this is LUMIX Live. This is the broadcast that we do every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where it is all about you, the community, trying to address questions that some of you may have, trying to show you some cool stuff about the cameras that maybe you do or don't know, hopefully provide some tips and kind of ways that you can work with the camera that may be beneficial to you. And then every once in a while, we try to have some guests on, things like that. So throughout this stream, if you have questions that you want me to answer during the broadcast, make sure to tag at LUMIX USA. As you can see, Peter is done in the chat. That just helps me see the questions, get to them throughout the broadcast. And then, we'll kind of go from there. You can do whatever questions. Some of the stuff I can answer, some things I can't answer. But if you ask it, we'll try to get to it throughout the broadcast. This is going to be another stream where basically I have to cut off right at the 2 o'clock Central Time mark, just because of other things going on in my day at the moment. But yeah, before we drive too far into that, I want to remind everybody in the US about LUMIX Pro services. We have the Red and the Platinum tier available within the US. Platinum tier is the paid level service, but the Red tier is available to you out of the box. If you've purchased a LUMIX camera, follow the QR code or the link down in the description. Get your camera registered. You're going to get access to the 3-year extended warranty out of the box once you get yourself registered on that. But then if you're someone who likes to have higher level of service, or you know that maybe you're a working professional and you know that you have downtime between seasons, the Platinum tier may be of interest to you. That's going to get you the same level, the 3-year warranty out of the box. But you're also going to get 2-day repairs with next day shipping both ways, 20% off out of warranty repairs. You get your normal kind of general servicing set up there. So you get your annual lens, sensor cleanings, calibrations, firmware updates if you want us to handle them. You also get access to a membership hotline. So if you prefer to speak to a person instead of working through chat or an email, you have that open to you Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And they're just good programs there to have in the back end if you ever need that kind of level of support. So as I said, with today's particular stream, we're going to dive a little bit more deeply into some of the specific areas that we talked about last week. So that's like the Real Time LUT functionality. I know I've talked about this on stream a lot, but I've seen a lot more questions now that there's more and more people adopting it. And there's some confusions about LUTs for vlog versus LUTs that could be utilized in like the standard profiles or the like 709 or basically Rec 709 based profiles or sRGB profiles. So I've got Photoshop open. We're going to dive into that. I'm going to show you how to create them based on your style if you're in the photography side. Technically this will work for the video side as well, but that's where using programs like Resolve is probably a better choice for that. And we'll talk about the video side on a separate stream. We're also going to talk about the LUMIX Sync app. I've got my phone set up here, and actually kind of a pretty nifty way that I can show you all how this works utilizing my phone. So we're going to talk about the LUMIX Sync app, show you some of the cool things that you can do in the app that maybe you didn't realize you can, and then just kind of go from there. But To start with, let's take a look. I see a bunch of questions have come in, so let's address some of those to start with. So Peter says, "Hey Sean, recently I bought a new 200mm f2.8. I love that lens with the G9 Mark II. Manual linear focus works great, but the mounted TC14 only non-linear. Why? Lens firmware update is the latest." This was something that actually just came up that got referenced to me probably about a week ago. That yes, when you use the teleconverter, the 1.4 or the 2x converter, it switches back to the variable for manual focus. I'm not 100% sure the reason behind it, but that is the operating behavior when you're using the teleconverters for now. We have sent the question up to see, is that something that can be adjusted? Is it because of the way the calibration works, having to identify the teleconverter? And to be completely frank with you, teleconverters are not usually the most common thing when it comes to doing the linear manual focus side of it, so I can understand why they don't do it, but it is something we are checking in on, Peter. So unfortunately, I don't have an update as far as that goes because I only just got brought into the conversation, it was end of last week. So I will try to keep you updated on the stream, and we'll go from there. Fielding says, "I'm trying to get better at video, but having problems wrapping my brain around editing. Any good resources for learning that you'd recommend? Final Cut Pro, time-lapse, beginner video settings." This is actually a good point, and I'll talk a little bit about the logic and what we're talking about within the topic from last week and this week, because I think they go hand in hand with, as you're trying to get yourself better at video, the more you can get right in camera, the easier it becomes in post, as far as at least just handling the footage goes. When you start looking into, being able to do various cut edits, motion graphics, things like that, I'd have to look and see, because that's not stuff that I do, but there are plenty of resources out there, honestly, from even the companies like Adobe, DaVinci, Resolve, Final Cut. People like Photo Joseph are good to talk with that. That can get you some really cool, kind of tips to make it work. So as we go through this, I'm going to take what we're talking about more as the how to get it better out of camera so you don't have to spend as much time in post fielding. But hopefully something that I covered today helps you with your wanting to get better at video. Kristen says, "More blurry photos from Mark II than the original G9. Have dialed focus peaking down to -2, and it's better, but can you talk about more tweaks? I've been shooting Lumix for 10 plus years, so this is odd." Yeah, Kristen, so while we're going through this, if you can let me know a couple of things so that I can try to help you. What lenses are you using? Generally, things like, since you're saying you're tweaking focus peaking down, I assume that means you're using manual focus. There are some differences with the way manual focus and peaking works on the newer cameras versus the original G9 that we'll talk about as we go. But if you can get me a little more information, like what lenses are you using, stabilization in the system, what frame rates, things like that, that'll help me as we go through this to kind of get you some more info. Hello, Daves. Let's see. JM says, on the G9 Mark II, is there a way to punch in to take a photo without using EX teleconverter and having to change your picture quality like digital converter? I know it will still be a crop. So for that particular situation, the way the system works now is you have to do it through changing your, picture size. So when you're shooting RAW plus JPEG, and you want to use like what we used to do, which was the digital crop on the cameras, which is pretty much gone. We don't use that in the cameras anymore. This is where you would turn EX teleconverter on, for those that don't know. And then if you want to change the resolution or the crop on it, this is where you have to go to your picture size. And that's where you're going to get your punch in for the various different looks that you want to go for. One of the things that I do that makes this easier, so I'm not having to do menu diving, is I will actually go in and set up the... let me see where it is here real quick. I will actually come in and set up my Q menu settings. so that in one of these options, I would come in and I would change this to picture size. Because now, as long as I have the teleconverter option turned on, and I forgot to turn my light on this scene. So now, like, if I have the teleconverter option turned on, I can just press the Q menu button. I can go to this option, and then I can just cycle through with the rear dial, and that gives me a very quick access to it. You just have to remember to leave the teleconverter option on. So that's probably the fastest way to do it, JM, because we don't do the older style of crop for the photo. These are more specific to aspect ratios that the camera can offer. So hopefully that helps. Like I said, that's the way I do it. I don't do it often, honestly, anymore, because it's the same effect you can get by doing it in post, but I can fully understand wanting to have visually that crop shown for you to get that extra reach while you're actually out capturing. But yeah, hopefully that helps, JM. Lash says, are there certain color profiles, vlog, natural, etc., that more or less noise when it comes to low light? Yes. So as we talk, when I start going into the real-time LUT conversation, this is going to be part of one of the things that you want to keep in mind. So photo styles like vlog have very low noise reduction applied to them, by comparison to things like standard, natural, vivid, the like 709 profiles or the sRGB profiles. And it even goes further when you start looking at, am I going to be recording ProRes? Am I recording in MOV with H.264? Am I recording in H.265? Each of these different codecs have different noise characteristics. With modern cameras, when you want to go for the highest quality you can, you're going to not want the camera to do as much noise reduction in camera. And the reason for this is that you want to retain as much detail as you can. So when you bring it into post, then you can do your adjustments. You can tune noise to your particular style. It's one of the things that I believe that now that things like vlog or a log workflow is becoming more and more common, there's a lot of situations where if you're used to getting ultra clean out of camera, and then you just abruptly switch to this style of shooting, it's something you have to contend with. And that's on any camera system. Doesn't matter who it is. Log profiles typically are noisier, quote unquote. The trade-off there is that you're going to get more detail out of the footage. You're just going to have to shift where your noise reduction happens. You're going to do that in post. Now, like with the topic we're talking about now, about getting the best right out of camera, this is where you start to kind of look at what the project is that you're working on and figuring out, one, do I need to shoot log? Is log even required for this job? Because also, log isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's not a magic bullet when it comes to video production, because you have those other things to contend with. So understanding how to use things like the Like 709 color profile, how to use tools like Real Time LUT, how to set the camera up with the kind of balance that works for you with noise reduction and sharpness. These are things that can help you get it, faster out of camera, and kind of avoid. If you know that you're always your target is to go for the cleanest possible looking image out of camera, so like you're not going to do anything in post with it, that's where you have to start thinking a little bit outside of vlog for that. Again, log profiles for pretty much any recording, you are going to have a noisier, and I'm purposely saying noise in quotes, than you would with a standard 709 profile. Biggest way to mitigate it, make sure you're shooting at the native ISOs. So if you're on the like G9 Mark II, for that, the log profile is ISO 500 is the base. If you're on like an S5 Mark II or an S5 Mark II X, then it's going to be 640 or 4000, since those cameras, the full frame cameras, have the dual native ISO system. When you keep to that, that's where you're going to get the balance point of dynamic range and noise performance. You're going to get it to where you're right in that balance. Yes, you can pull ISO down and you can get cleaner image, but your dynamic range is going to suffer when you do that. Suffer, quote unquote. anytime you move off native ISOs or you go into extended range ISOs, especially on the lower side, you're telling the camera to clip your highlights sooner. So you have to remember and keep that in mind. You can get cleaner, but your dynamic range is going to reduce because you're losing your highlight information for it. Yeah. Lost goals. I have the S5. What is the easiest way to upload LUTs to the system because I don't have real-time LUT? So for that particular camera, for the S5, basically every camera, or yeah, the S5, and any camera that does the LUT preview on the cameras. So for those that don't know, cameras outside of the S5, Mark II, Mark IIX, G9 Mark II, they have those cameras have what's called V-Log View Assist, and on those cameras you actually load those through the menu, so V-Log View Assist, and then you can pick the LUTs that you want to apply on here. The older cameras, so S5, S1, S1H, they require the .VLT LUT profile, or the LUT type. That is the Vericam LUTs for the camera. So those, you can convert a .VLT into a cube, and you can convert a cube into a .VLT. It's just a file format. But you also have to remember that the .VLT files are limited to 8 characters for naming. So just kind of keep that in mind. The newer system, you load your LUTs in through the LUT library function, which is now moved to the top of the series here. This is where I can load in the various different LUTs that I want to work with. And on the newer cameras, as long as you're using an SDXC media card, you can load in the .cube files, and you have a much longer file name. You have up to 255 characters for naming. Yeah. Where did we go? Just a reminder, if you have questions or something you want me to address, make sure you tag at LUMIX USA so I can see it. I think it's Jens says, I like the video recording on SSD with the G9 Mark II. Is there a safe way to record 120 frames per second on SSD without AC power? Is there a battery solution with enough power for 120 FPS on SSD? Currently at the moment, the only way to do higher than 60 frames per second to the SSD is by using the external DCC adapter. I have to look into it. We don't validate third-party power accessories, especially those that go in through the battery compartment, because the quality of those is all over the place, and if we say that it's okay and then it fries your camera, that's a problem. We don't validate them because we don't know how they're manufactured. We don't build them. We don't have a hand in building them. So we can't confidently tell you that, like, yes, this one's going to be okay. No, this one's bad. That's kind of where it is right now. So as of right now, if you want to do SSD, you would have to use the AC power for that. Kristen says, using the original 12 to 35 and 35 to 100 lens, 45 macro, stabilization on dual, Rantest G9, same settings, definitely a difference. And then says, also the original 100 to 400. This is for stills. Have used different modes like M and P just to test. Setup similar to my G9 that I've had for 5 years. Okay, Kristen, so, and I'm using peaking with autofocus. Okay. Manual focus, but usually not. If peaking works, definitely, I'd love to know how. So this is, I think, something weird, because I've had a couple people have some challenges with the shooting experience between the G9 and the G9 Mark II. I have a G9 Mark II hooked up here. The truth is, like, the sensor and the optics performance on this sensor are much better than the original G9. I know you might be tired of hearing people say that, right? But you do have an increase in resolution, so your images should be much sharper. They should be sharper. Your noise performance is going to be better on this sensor than what was on the original G9, thanks to the newer dynamic range boost system that runs in this camera. The biggest thing that I've seen that some people may be running into is honestly, as you start to go even slightly higher in resolution and you start moving with faster burst rates, things of that nature, you start noticing where maybe older lenses may have had optical issues that are not seen on the 20 megapixel versus this one. But since you're saying that you've tested with a bunch of different lenses, I'm a little confused as to why you might be seeing it. One of the first things I'd recommend maybe is trying to turn the stabilizer off. It's possible that because you're using the original 12 to 35 and 35 to 100 and the 45 millimeter macro, which run the early version of dual IS, not the newest version, it's possible that those lenses may have some challenges. Not saying that they do particularly, but the Gen 2s of those lenses and newer are the ones that are hardware able to get the updates required for like our active IS technology, which is the kind of bedrock of the IS system on the new cameras. So that could be a potential there. If you're noticing that it's, you're running into some of the same situations with photos between the manual focus and autofocus, that's why I would look at stabilizer. When you look at the firmware download page, I mean, we do a lot to try to keep as many of the older lenses updated as we can, but there are times where you do just start to run into where the older hardware that's used isn't it's compatible, but it's on an older standard, and when you start using higher res cameras, you start noticing them more. The newer lenses are also redesigned for better resolution, better sharpness, better micro contrast, stuff like that. So I'm not saying that lenses would be the problem, but my first thing to test would be turn stabilizer off. Set up on a tripod, try to keep things as stable as possible, see how the images look, try to compare them there. And also remember that if you're comparing a G9 image versus a G9 Mark II image, you would want to scale, if you're trying to compare the sharpness between them, you would want to try to do a comp scale to make sure that you're looking at the same resolution for both. Because on the 25 megapixel sensor, you're going to be punching in further than the 20 megapixel sensor. So that could give you the appearance that it's not as sharp in some cases. Let's see here. Lost goals. Also, when can we get free LUTs from the LUMIX website? Is the URL available? Yes, there actually is a set of LUTs that we have available. LUMIX LUTs. I have to remember the website. It's been a while since I looked for it, because we do have the LUTs available for people. Here we go. So I'm going to drop a link down in here for the LUTs that are posted right now. These are on our UK site. These have LUTs created by people like John Simo, by Caleb Hoover, Devin Williams. So that this is kind of like a smaller subset of the LUTs that we have. So feel free to take a look at these. Get yourself copies of these LUTs and play around with them if you think that they're a style for you. So we just dropped that down in the chat. Cool. All right, I'm going to do 2 more questions, and then we're going to jump into the camera here. Where did we go? Okay, got that one. Christy, will something be done with recording 4-channel audio at one time? Right now, it records 2 mono channels and 2 blank channels. Any way to turn this off? At the moment, there isn't anything changing with the system, so I honestly don't have an update for you. We have asked and presented to our engineering team everyone's request, like wanting to be able to disable 4-channel and only record 2 and have it closer to what we did in the previous cameras. But at this point, I just don't have any update for you. With Vlog, is it better to overexpose by one stop or not? All log profiles, the proper way to expose them is to expose your middle gray to the proper IRE scale, which on Vlog is 42 IRE, and then light the scene to create your dynamic range. Short of that, if you use the luminance spot meter, that's how you can get better results for the kind of exposure for the system to shoot where you protect highlights. Remember that if you shoot to protect highlights, You are running in a little bit of a situation where you push your skin tones brighter and then you have to bring them down. So you do have a potential for some color shifting. But that's where corrective LUTs are what you typically would use for there. So with that, let's talk about LUTs. So we've talked about the fact that we have real-time LUT built into the camera for a while now. And for those that don't know, real-time LUT is a function in the newer LUMIX cameras that allows you to load in your own created looks into the camera. So LUTs, it's an acronym for lookup table. And if you're new to this and you search LUT, you're going to find a lot of video references about LUTs because they've been commonly used there. You'll see references to things like Rec 709, ProRes RAW, conversions, things like that. You'll find creative LUTs, you'll find corrective LUTs. All of this stuff is kind of all over the place. But what's cool about it is that if you are using something that's designed for Vlog, it's pretty straightforward. LUT designed for Vlog converts to 709, converts to Rec 2020. However you want to do that in the video side, you've got plenty of options there. And you can just take the .cube file, which is what they're created in. You can take that, put it onto your camera. You just put it right on the root of the SD card, and then you're good to go. That's all you need to do. Once you do that, you come in, you go to the LUT library, you do set, you load, you pick the card, and then it's written there. Again, you want to make sure you're using a 64 gig card or higher. So that's an SDXC media card. Once you have those, within the LUMIX cameras, you have a couple really cool things you can do with it. So under our photo styles, you'll see that we have the common thing, which is Vlog. This is what a lot of people want to shoot in for, higher level video because you're going to have to do editing and post. You can get more dynamic range out of the camera, and it's awesome. But when you go into this, you're looking at a very gray looking image because Vlog is designed for video shooting and it's designed to compress dynamic range when you're captured so that when you bring it into the software, you can expand it back out. That is a very simplified explanation for anyone in video, I know. But we've now added the real-time LUT tool into this as well. Now what this allows us to do is take that log file and apply a conversion LUT to the footage. Now this burns the look into the file, so I can set my exposure up, my scene, I know how it's gonna look, I know where the highlights and everything are, and if I have a very specific look that I like to work with, I can just apply that right on top of the footage. This is great because now I have a deliver ready or much closer to deliver ready piece of footage. I don't have to spend as much time when I bring it into post, do the conversion to 709, do some additional edits, and then kick it out. I can do it just to 709, or if I've created a look in post that I like working with, say for specific jobs, I can take that look, export it out as a cube, put it onto the camera, and I can just apply that right over Vlog. So it gets you a really fast workflow for specific use cases. Now again, this is not going to be something that is necessarily everybody's cup of tea. There are a lot of situations where you want the log footage. You don't want the real-time LUT footage or the graded footage out of camera. You would just want to be able to preview what it looks like. And we still have that functionality in this camera. That's what the Vlog View Assist functionality is. So if I scroll down here and we go to Vlog View Assist, you'll see that I can come in. I have that like 709 LUT that I've loaded into the camera, and this one in particular, Vlog to 709, this comes default in the camera. But I can come in and I can turn that on so that that is now just a monitoring LUT. That lets me say I can set my exposure, all this kind of stuff, but the file I'm recording is still in Vlog. So, cool, right? You have that. It can help you get the footage out really quick. And you're not having to worry too much about, losing the full flexibility in post if you have to go into post with that workflow. But we also have the functionality called My Photo Styles in this camera. Now, My Photo Styles allows you to come in and pick a base profile that is found in the camera. So that's standard, natural, vivid, L Classic Neo. If you're in the G9 Mark II, you have Leica monochrome. So you have all of the base profiles for you. You can do all of your general tweaking to this, so contrast, highlights, things that we talked about last week. but you also have the ability to apply a LUT over top of that. Now, in the photography sense, this is going to be a little different because in photography, we don't think of using LUTs in the photography world. However, they've been kind of being used for years. We just called them a different name. We call them either presets or profiles in the cameras. So what we've set this system up to do is allow you to load in .cube files and use them for your photographic side as well. And you can create those however you want. So I can come in, like I created in Photoshop, like an infrared kind of look. So it's not really infrared, obviously, but it's a really kind of heavy black and white profile. And I'm going to show you how I create these. I can do things like a cross-processed image. I can come in, as I click the wrong thing here, I can come in, I can make a different kind of one that's maybe a little bit more punchy. And these are all things that are my style. These are how I like to edit images, say. So how do you get that? How do you make this easier for yourself when you want to not have to spend time in post? Well, that's through things like Photoshop. So if you take a photo that you capture and just kind of make sure that you keep track of what color profile that particular photo was shot in. So in case this is shot in standard from the LUMIX cameras, this was shot on an S5 Mark IIX. So I can take this image and then by editing this image in layers, so going way back to the way we used to have to edit photos before Lightroom existed, things like that, you can come in and do your edits to this image. So you can play with different photo filters, black and white types, the various saturation curves, all of that kind of stuff. You can tweak this image to look the way you want it. So say I want to add a warming filter onto this so I can get that, kind of just a general warmer look to it. I want to come in and maybe I want to do like a cross-process type thing where I do a channel swap. So in this case, this channel swap is actually done where I'm flipping the red and blue channels. So you get some really weird kind of, what I like to call maybe like a post-apocalyptic kind of look. It's kind of weird. And then you can even come in and do things like change saturation. So in this case, I bring the saturation down a bit. I shift the way the image looks there. But then if I want to go kind of like maybe old school, I can come in and I can lift the black levels, the output black levels on this so that I can get that kind of old washed out look. I can do that with the highlights as well, so you can kind of shift that stuff around, but I like to keep my highlights a little more bright. But I can come in, tweak a lot of this stuff around with levels, and really kind of come up with my own look. So say this is an image, I love editing this way, it's that old kind of like sepia Western style look, right? Well, this look doesn't exist in the cameras. We used to have things like photo filters where you would kind of mimic these kinds of looks, and they're okay, but they were always limited to JPEGs. What Photoshop allows you to do is have this image, edit within layers the way that we used to edit, and for some this will be different. But once you edit an image once this way, then you're just going to come in and go to File, Export, Color Lookup Table. Now, when you export a color lookup table, it's going to give you a couple little pieces of info that you have to put in here. So for one, grid point, set it to 33. You want to export a .cube file. That's the file that you're looking for. You can add some additional information here, like a description of it, what you want. So like, let's say that this is old school, standard, faded. So cool, right? I've got that. Nice. Now I can come in here and I can go to my memory card, which I did not put in. Let me put my memory card in the computer. There we go. Let's go there. There we go. So I've got this file here. We're going to put this onto my camera here, and let's do this standard so I know which color profile to apply this to. Let's do faded old. Simple name. I use underscores when I put spaces. It's easier for me to see. So once I have that, all I have to do is just click save. It now saves that .cube file out onto my memory card. So now all I do is I take my memory card, I put it into my camera, And then now I can come in, go to that LUT, wow, my brain stopped there. I can go to my LUT library page, come in here, go to set 4, because that's an open bank for me to save to, go to load, and then right now you'll see that standard faded old. So now when I click this and I load it in, it saves that onto the camera's memory. Now when I go back up into my photo styles, you'll see that if I press the display button, or if I press the focus button here, I can now grab that faded look that I just created on the computer, have that on my camera, and know that to start with, this is based in the standard color profile. So you're going to get that black levels lifted a little bit. You're going to get that, in this case, that kind of cross process with the sepia kind of toning to it. I can then save this image out, or save this style out, create a new name for it. So let's just do this quickly here. Let's just change this to old. Hit set. And then save current settings. Save this on my photo style 1. And now every time I want to go in to make this particular shot, I now know that I have this set up. I can take my images, and when I play them back, hopefully my ATEM, there we go, the ATEM didn't break that time. I can take a look at this, and I know that, go playback, and I can look at this and say, okay, the image is the way I want it. It looks how I want that image to kind of come out. When I punch into this, I'm able to see where I focused on it, and you see that actual image there. So now, as a JPEG, this image to me is ready to go deliver and produce either to a client, or if I'm doing this in a more art style, I have that art ready to go so that I can deliver it and post it wherever I want. The coolest thing about this is that now that I've saved that LUT file out, that .cube file, I can come in here under layers, and I can apply that under color lookup. So if I didn't have any of these other profiles attached onto this, right? Now I did adjust the levels here. I have the ability to come in and actually add that .cube file back into the camera. So that means that I don't have to necessarily sit and worry and think, okay, well, how do I get back to that image with a raw file if I want to use it again? It's just a .cube file. You load it into the program however you want, and Photoshop is designed to take those in so that you have access to them. I saw a whole bunch more questions just jump in. Let me jump through here, see what some people were saying real quick. Ellie says, is there a faster way to switch to custom modes 4 through 10 on the S5 IIX, or is setting to custom 3, hitting display, and then navigating the menu button the only way? Is there a faster way? Yes. So if I go to, let's see if this breaks my ATEM. No, it didn't. Cool. But it has my display stuff out. Let's do this. Let's go to this. Turn my info display back on. There we go. Now you can see what I'm doing in the menus. So, yeah, if you're in the custom C3, what you'll see is that when you press the menu button, this is where you've got all those options set up, right? The other option here, if I press the display button and go back to a regular display, actually, I don't know if I can do it attached over HDMI. You can typically tap the top left there as well. So, like, if we look at this display here, you'll see where it says PC3-1 in the top left of the info display. You can tap that, and that'll also get you there. But you can also come in, I believe, let me double check this. I believe you can also come in, I don't know why I'm looking at that, I can just look on my screen for this. You should be able to come in and change that also under the quick menu. So if I go into quick menu and say, well, actually, it would be under video. So if I'm under video, I should be able to come in and change that. I just have to remember where it is. Unless this might actually be one of those things that was on a much older camera and not on the newer ones. Yeah, so scratch that. The fastest way to do it is just press menu and then select which ones you want. Sorry. Fielding. Favorite Micro Four Thirds Astro lens to use with the G9 Mark II. I've been looking at the Panasonic Leica 9mm f1.7 and 12mm f1.4. Maybe Laowa's 6mm f2. Can you make me LUTs in can you make LUTs in Lightroom Classic? So I'll address this two ways. This 9mm is now my favorite for doing astro and night work. This is possibly one of the nicest lenses I've used because it's so small, it's compact, it doesn't have any white lettering on the front. So if I'm using any kind of filtration or if I'm shooting through a window or something like that, I don't have to worry about reflections. That's why I love this lens. Plus it's tiny. I can keep a very compact kit with it. Second part of your question. Can you create LUTs in Lightroom? Technically you can. You can take presets and you have to pay for a third-party program to do this. You can take the preset files and you can have them converted to LUTs. Not the best way to do it, but yeah, you'd have that kind of option. Let's see here. I think it's Andre. Fortunately, we don't comment on rumors or any kind of potential possible, whether it's true or not, future products. So yeah, sorry. Thanks for turn away. Okay, all right, cool, Kristen. Chris Flores, I've been experimenting with AF settings on the G9 Mark II, and I feel like my photos still aren't sharp. I zone with face, body, and eye, or one area plus. I find my photos sharp when the subject is close. Thanks. Definitely take a look at various different just kind of like the lenses. So you're using the Oli 17. All right, so you're using Olympus lenses. There shouldn't be a problem with the Olympus lenses. I can start that very clearly. There should not be an issue with the lenses. One of the things that you might be running into is if it's in RAW, checking with the RAW editing software and making sure that one, it's applying the right lens profiles. Because if you don't have the right lens profile attached, you could cause some problems there. But you really shouldn't be running into problems like that. Every photo that I've run through Lightroom and Photoshop and all these different programs, they're infinitely sharper than what I've gotten out of the previous 20 megapixel gen sensors. I would double check, make sure your Olympus lenses are firmware updated, make sure that the LUMIX camera's firmware updated. One of the things that you can play around with on the camera to kind of help speed things up so that you're not running into potential problems is actually going into the menu. No, that's slow and quick. This is where I would go into the menu and actually work with the AF custom settings. Set 1, obviously it's very basic and versatile, but play around with these different AF settings because this can also make a difference on the keeper rate, how sharp your images are, because if the system's trying to be much more more active, and what I mean by that is if it's trying to move because every little movement that someone makes can be changing the focus, that can potentially screw up a type of photo that maybe you're trying to get because the system's being very responsive. There is a such thing as a too responsive system for autofocus. We found that out early. Funnel Fest, sorry, it's a bit of a joke. Is one of the things that I have argued with myself or fought with myself for years over trying to get rid of. So I apologize if it annoys you. So, yeah, that's kind of what I would check, Chris. See, I did it again. There shouldn't be an issue there, but I would try the focus settings, see if that helps. Dark Trap. What is the area of 422 10-bit? 100% sRGB. So 422 10-bit and that kind of color profile, you don't measure in P3 or sRGB. These are 709 color profiles. Yeah, you're not going to be... You're not measuring it in sRGB or P3 when it comes from the cameras. 422 10-bit is going to be based on the 709 color gamut. When you go to Vlog, you're using V gamut, which is much larger than P3 or 2020, even larger than 709. sRGB, yes, you have a different scale there for photo. It's going to depend on which... see, I did it again. It is going to depend on what mode you have the camera in. Photo styles are sRGB or Adobe RGB. Video files are going to be either like 709 or in the Rec 709 color profile. The the Rec 709 profile, the HLG profile, which you do also have an expanded 2100 profile, or they're going to be in V gamut for your profile. So hopefully that helps, Dark Trap. Almanacs, I would love an explainer on how to best work with flashes on these cameras. What recommendations? I'm going to cover flashes in a different stream because I'm working on a much bigger thing. I actually have a set of Godoc's studio strobes behind me that I just don't have the space to do what I want to do with them yet for the stream. So, not video related. I'm loving the 100mm macro lens on my S5 IIX. I use focus bracketing a lot. I wish the camera could create a separate folder for each scene, similar to time lapse. That is a great recommendation. I would like to definitely. We've definitely presented that idea to our teams before. Being able to break things out into folders like what we can do now with time lapse would be a very useful thing. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we have brought it up to them before. Eli says, oh yeah, I guess if I keep the menu in the custom mode tab, then yeah, it would be the quickest way to switch as it stays on what you last opened. Thanks. Yeah, sorry, that's how it is. The other option that you always could do is set up the camera to where you're using the My Photo or the My Menu options here, because you can pre-program those, and then in the settings you can have it force the camera to go into those menus. That might be able to help you get into some of those a little bit faster. But we will press the engineering team like, hey, this is something that people are asking. They'd like to see how to do, or how to work with it that way. So, okay, I want to jump into the LUMIX Sync app real quick here. So one of the things that we've talked about for a while is app control, right? So app control, one of the ways that you use this is by connecting into either your phone directly, or in my case, I'm going to connect to my home wireless network here. So we're going to connect here. I'm just going to do display, and I'm not going to show you this for now because I can't remember if I have to enter my password in for this, and I don't want you all knowing it. Okay. So, all right. So I'm connecting to my home network right now, right? So what this means is that this is giving me the camera connecting into the home wireless network. It's going to connect up and it says launch LUMIX Sync, right? So now if we go into my phone here, I'm looking at the LUMIX app right now. So I want to come in here and I want to connect this to my camera. So I can come in here, and I have to remember how to do this way because I'm doing this a very odd way here. Can I do it? How can I get this to work the way I want it to? Do we do Wi-Fi connection? Wi-Fi setup. We're here. Let's go back. There we go. So right now the camera is connected into the internet, as you can see, or into my home network. I have my app connected here. It's found the camera, it's connecting, and now I have access to my camera through my app. Now for those that are wondering how I'm doing this, this is Samsung DeX. So this is because my phone I can connect over HDMI. But you're going to see the same exact setup on your phone as well. You'll have the same screen, the proportions will be a little different. So to start with, we have remote control shooting functionality with our cameras. This allows us to be able to do all of the things that we were talking about, being able to change things like color profiles, being able to come in and adjust, what options I want to work with, to get the camera set up for how I want to use it. If I'm someone setting up and I want to be able to get images captured and get them to my mobile device fast, The app is going to be one of the easiest ways to do this. Now I'm showing you right now the remote control functionality. So this is where I can, like I said, I can change color profiles. I can adjust everything that's in the Q menu. Now this will reflect how you have the camera set up. So if you've set your Q menu up the way you like it, you're going to have that set up the way it's going to look like yours on the back of the camera. But from here, you also have a couple of other really cool functions as well to make this much faster for your getting right out of the camera. I can tap into here. I can come in and change what metering modes I'm using. I can change what aspect ratio, the photo style, the picture style. So just like we said before, I have the EX teleconverter functionality turned on. So I can come in and change my picture size, and it adjusts the image accordingly. I also have the ability to come in, and let me change this back before I forget. So we'll change this back to 25. I have access to control my high resolution shot functionality. I have the ability to come in and change my autofocus functions, so I can change the type of subject, the part of the subject that I'm capturing here. I have access to live view composite from the app as well, so this makes being able to capture those images super fast. And then I even have the ability to filter out video recording and control the video functionality. So the app gives you a ton of control over the image that you want to capture. I have tap to refocus. I also have tap to capture with this as well, because I can come in here, go into the menus, and I can change some of these settings up. A little hard to see them because the scaling on DeX doesn't really work that well. So I have all of this. I have my full exposure settings here. I can change display, all of that kind of stuff, right? But what's really important is being able to say, I'm going to take an image. So right now I just took an image. I'm going to take another image, apparently. I'm going to come through, but I also have, like, because I'm shooting in full manual, let's change this to aperture. You'll get a notice on there that, you know, I just changed it to aperture, right? So we've got this set up here. Let me take one more image. Cool. So now, to get this directly out of camera, and this ties into what we were just saying, that I created this look through Real Time LUT. I just took the image. It's on my camera. Now all I have to do here, just like you do on your phone, is just tap the image here. It opens up the card. You'll have an option if you have two cards in the camera. It'll open up the card, show me the image that I have here, and I can do just as simple as tap this, and I can send it over to my phone. The cool thing with this, too, is that I have the option to say I want to send the JPEG, or I want to send the RAW, or I want to send JPEG and RAW. So, in order to change those, that's where I come up here, tap those three dots, and I have saving RAW format is where I can do RAW, JPEG, or RAW plus JPEG. Now, I just sent the RAW file over, which means when I look at it on my phone, it's not going to have the look that I applied to it, because that's a RAW file. But if I set JPEG, I also have the ability to change the image size. So I usually leave this original now that phones have like huge storage and you have cloud storage available on your phones. But once I set that, I've now set this to give me that image for JPEG. Tap the button again, if I can actually tap the button. And then, boom, it's transferring the JPEG over. This is sending the full resolution images over. The app will tell you whether or not it is a RAW and JPEG or if it's just a RAW file, but this gives you a lot of really awesome functionality. When you also go in with this, you'll also have the ability to come through. You can select multiple images. You also have the ability to come in and filter or select multiple images. I can tap up here and I can do filtering. So if you're someone that marks your images in camera, your photos and videos, I can come in and pick what the star rating was, and then I can filter for that. Now, because I don't have any of the images saved on the camera filtered, it's not going to show me. But I have a really nice, simple way to edit, work with the files, go from capturing to immediate delivery onto my mobile device, and I don't have to spend a lot of time, working on the computer to do this. If you do want to edit on the go, this is where the photos will work great in things like Lightroom. I see Marlene, you just asked a question. I've been testing the app with iOS, but iPhones and iPads don't open the G9 Mark II RAW files. Do RAW files open on Android? Yes, they do open on Android. The iOS side, that's an Apple issue. Apple would have to update the libraries that they use for photos. You would have to use either, like if you use Google Photos, it should work. If you do the, if you use things like Lightroom or Capture One Mobile, any of those kind of programs, they open the raw files fine. It's just that iOS doesn't open them natively. On Android, because the Photos apps, both with the Samsung devices and with like the Google devices and all the other companies making them, because they're based on Google's galleries, basically, they do have raw editing functionality native. This is one of the areas where I'm proud to say that I do have both iOS and Android. But yeah, that's kind of where it is right now, Marlene. Hopefully Apple updates that, because it's going to be an update that's required on their side to update the libraries. That's nothing we have control over with that part. So talking about what I was just mentioning before, right? So rating photos, right? So say like I took a whole bunch of photos, I really like the way this image looks, and I want to be able to use this later on, or I want to be able to find it very quick. By default, in the LUMIX cameras, you can press the AF on button, and it's going to tag your image with a rating for it. Now, for those that don't know, you can change what that rating is in the camera, or you can program in various different options for while you're in playback. This is where I can come in, go into my function button settings in play mode, and then you'll notice that by default, AF on is set for a 3-star. You have the Q menu button in playback, which is the kind of direct send to mobile device. You have card swapping, things like that. You even have the 2 buttons up front, in this case on the G9 Mark II. So you can program these in to be basically whatever you want. If you want to come in and say, like, I want the white balance button in this case to be magnify from AF point, cool. Now it's magnify from AF point, so if I'm reviewing an image and I press the white balance button, it turns magnify from AF point on, and then when you see that green box, I can zoom in and confirm that that's where I focused. One little note is that if you're in high resolution shot mode, magnify from AF point doesn't work. It doesn't jump in for you. So you've got the ability to kind of tweak these a little bit for your particular style. But yeah, that rating piece is a nice component, because you're able to go in as you're shooting, rate your photos as you're going through playback, so that when you want to send those photos later, if you want to use it on your mobile device, you can filter for those, select all, and then transfer right to your phone, and then you're set. You're good to go with it. I know I said I was going to talk about the LUMIX Tether program as well, but I'm running out of time on this stream, and actually I don't have an easy way to set it up. I just forgot to set it up, so we're going to cover that probably next week. But there is there's one other thing I want to talk about, which is media on these cameras. So I see a lot of people online talk about various different SD cards, various different media that you work with on your cameras, and this is going to cover not just the G9 Mark II, even though I'm using that as the demo. I'm going to talk about all of the cameras across the board. So there are 3 types of main media that are being used in the LUMIX cameras these days. You have your most common SD cards. So we all know SD cards. These are what we've used forever. Cool, you've got them. Nice, right? On the LUMIX cameras, we are very particular in making sure that every time I talk to somebody, it is highly recommended. V60 minimum, V90 is recommended. V90 cards, while yes, not every camera is going to take advantage of V90 to its fullest, V90 cards are a faster communication spec. They're a faster minimum read and write speed. They're a sustained minimum write speed to the card. So that mitigates issues, or it mostly mitigates issues where you are capturing a bunch of photos, or you capture a video scene, you stop recording, and then it takes a little bit to offload to the card. The faster the card you go, the less likely you are to run into bottlenecks where that has to spend the time writing to the card. There is going to be time that the processor has to finish closing that file and then sending it, and then the communication bus to get it to the card. Yeah, that's going to be there. And that's going to vary depending on the camera that you're using. But if you're running into ever a situation where you put the card in the camera, you go to hit playback, and it's taking forever for the image to play back, there are two things you want to look for. One, are you using the right cards? Many people, and this is not to call out SanDisk, but many people, these are very popular memory cards. These Extreme Pros, they're 300 megabit per second, or this is the 200 megabit. The 300 megabit per second is the more popular one. They're V60 memory cards. But what a lot of people, or even if you're using the V30 cards, what a lot of people don't realize is that these cards are UHS-1, which means they only have one row of contacts there, as opposed to a V90 card or a V60 card, which has dual rows. Now, this is a UHS-2, this is UHS-1. UHS-1 cards are going to run very slow in the cameras. They are only rated for V30, which means if you're shooting a whole bunch of photos, or as your photo file sizes are getting bigger, they're going to take longer to write to that card, which means it's going to take longer to be ready to shoot again. You also run into when you have to go to playback. That card, when you are hitting playback, is going to reach to the card, read what the file information is there, but the camera has to wait for the card to finish doing its process to tell the camera what's there, where it is on the card. So if you are running into slowdowns where you go to playback and it takes a couple seconds to playback, where it's taking you a couple seconds to finish a recording and clip, or your buffer is taking really long to clear, first thing to check is make sure you're not using UHS-1 cards. We don't recommend using them. Yes, you can use them. There's nothing that's going to break. There's no problems with using them. But you need to keep that in mind, that your card speed, it's more than just, yes, it's a more expensive card kind of thing. Faster cards are very important to invest in. I highly recommend V90 cards. I personally use the Pro Grade cards. These are the number one SD cards that I'm using across the board. I really don't use any other than that. But then when you come to cameras like the GH6, that uses CF Express. Now, CF Express, for those who have not ever seen them, this is a Delkin card. CF Express is, this is the Type B media card. This is the one that has the slot on the front. These are basically, for all intent and purpose, these are basically, you can consider them SSDs, pretty much. They're compact, they're very fast, and they are required for various different recording modes on cameras. So if you're looking at a GH6 and you want to record, the much higher bit rates that you have on the camera, that's where you're going to have to record onto these, because they can write information much faster than an SD card can, and they're more reliable. These do also get a lot hotter than an SD card, so keep that in mind. And you have to make sure you're using the correct reader with them, because the older XQD, because it's the same format as what XQD was, those older XQD cards were much slower, and the readers for those don't always work with CF Express. So you've got that out of the way. Then you have possibly my favorite option, which is SSDs, external SSD recording. Now, I have two styles here. We have my favorite, which is the ProBlade solution. This is SanDisk's design. This is SanDisk's setup here. This has a connector that is designed to be easily removed and transported between various different readers. So it's a very robust platform. They're NVMe SSDs inside, and they're really fast. Truth be told, pricing on these things, when you start looking online for SSDs, pricing for these are actually very similar to just a bare bones NVMe SSD. And remember that if you buy those bare bones NVMe SSDs, you'd have to buy an external housing to put it in, and you end up being the same price as this with their transport reader. The cool thing with these, why these are my favorite, is that you have the option here from Condor Blue. This is the Condor Blue SSD handle. This allows me to put the ProBlade SSD right into this, store it in here, has the USB connector up front. Now I have a multi-use piece here. Since I use it as the photography perspective, I have it as a handle on the side, USB cable coming in, and I do both my photos and video files to this. This makes it very easy to work when you work with SSDs for getting things even to your mobile device. Most mobile devices can recognize an SSD as an external storage device, and now that things like Apple's, the iPhone 15 has moved to USB-C, I believe. Shows you how up to date I am on iOS. Because you're using USB-C, and Android devices have USB-C, they've had it for a while, you can then just take the drive, plug it right into your mobile device, and transfer higher-end videos that way, since we can only transfer MP4s over Wi-Fi. The other option styles that you have are things like this Samsung T5. You have to find a way to mount these, but you have another option. Storage on these is going to be a much easier thing to work with, so that if I mentioned before about, if I want to be able to transfer this stuff to my iOS device or my Android device, and I want to send over MOV files, which we don't send over Wi-Fi, on iOS you have to use something like one of these, the kind of USB, or in this case this is Lightning because I only have a 14, the Lightning to SD reader. You can use USB to SD readers as well on Android devices, but if you're using just an SSD, it's just a simple cable, plug it in, your devices recognize it as an external device, and you can transfer those right onto your phone. That helps speed things up, because once you've got the files on the camera the way you want to capture them, you're using Real Time LUT, you're working with the various color profiles, maybe you're using the mobile app to, actually set up your shots, capture your images, transfer the JPEGs, things like that you would want to transfer. Getting those files to your mobile device, if it's going to be a higher end video file, an MOV file, open gate, things like that, being able to just take the SSD off, plug it into your phone, get those files transferred, means that you're one step closer to the delivery and not having to go through the process of go back to your computer, offload files that way. You still have that function, but see, a couple questions came in, and then I really have to end the stream. Sorry, y'all. Jeremy, are there any plans to update LUMIX Sync app to be able to view photos or videos on the card while the camera is still in use? Not that I'm aware of, because the control for that is when the camera is being used for photo, it has to be able to write to the media. If you're doing multiple things, that's a very intensive process. So it's an either or. It's either you're shooting or you're reviewing photos. Just traded in my G85 for a G9 Mark II. The new PL 12-60 and my existing PL 100-400 don't appear to be as sharp on my G85 RAW files. Is this a result of internal default sharpening setting? Again, like I was saying, there should be no reason why the G9 Mark II is any less is softer than files from a G85. I can 100% tell you that's not the experience I'm seeing, and many others aren't either. One of the first things to check, make sure, one, that your files are up to date, or that your firmware is up to date. Double check your settings. Is the softness because of either shutter speed impacts on it? If you're looking at RAW files, make sure that the software is using the proper profile for the lenses. Those are things I would check first with it. Dr. Hito says, would it be possible for post-focus to make a return to the S-series cameras? I don't know. We removed post-focus on the modern cameras. We've talked about this before, because the truth is, over the years of us having it, never really heard many people using it. So yeah, companies will make decisions based on the fact that if no one is using it, or at least overtly using it that we can see, or it's a lower number and there's something better we can put in place, we're going to do that. But yeah, we can ask. I can't make promises on stuff like that, though. Let's see here. Okay, cool. Looks like we're good on questions there. So, all right. While I know I didn't get to the LUMIX Tether functionality side of this conversation, and I do apologize if anyone was really looking forward to that part, we'll try to get to that next week. I do have to call the stream for this week. So thank you all so much for jumping in, listening to me talk about this stuff. hopefully, if you've not played with things like Real Time LUT before, hopefully the walkthrough or the demo that I gave with things like Photoshop help you get into maybe trying it yourself, playing around, seeing if it's something that would be interesting to you to work with. For the video side of this, I am going to work on a video-specific version of things like the LUT functionality, how to work with them in the future, but we're still probably a little bit away from that. We will be live again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube, so if you liked this content, if you liked the conversations we had, if you show your support to LUMIX, to what we're doing here, drop a like. It helps me grow the channel. Share these videos out to people that you think may be interested in these or may find some useful tidbits throughout them. Outside of that, if you don't already, follow us over on Instagram, over on TikTok, whichever of those platforms you tend to like. We've got some fun content being posted all the time over there. As you post photos, videos online, make sure to tag at LUMIX USA on Instagram or even on TikTok. We love seeing people's work. We love shouting out the work that we see out there from all of you. So definitely interact with us over there. And yeah, other than that, we'll be back next Thursday. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I hope you have an awesome weekend. Get out there, create some cool stuff, and yeah, see you next week. Later.